And every story can change the world. Together we are Global Speakers Talk.
Greetings and welcome back to Global Speakers Talk Monthly Summit. I'm JB Herrera, and today we're asking a question most of us spend our whole lives avoiding. Why should anyone remember you? Well, why should anyone remember you? Not recognize your name, not remember your title, not your follower count, not remember that you had a great resume or a beautifully polished LinkedIn profile. Why should they remember you? Now think for a moment about the people you remember most clearly. Chances are you don't remember every word they said. You probably don't remember what they were wearing, and you almost certainly don't remember their job title. But you remember something else. You remember how they made you feel. You remember what they helped you see. You remember the confidence they gave you. Maybe it's the question they asked you, the possibility they awakened in you, or perhaps the moment they simply made you feel that you mattered. See, that's the difference between being noticed and being unforgettable. And that distinction matters more than ever in today's world, because we live in a world that competes relentlessly for our attention. More content, more messages, more experts, more speakers, more opinions, more people telling us what we should think, buy, believe, and become. And technology has made it even easier than ever to be visible. But visibility and significance are not the same thing. You can reach thousands of people and leave almost no impression. Or you can change the direction of one person's life with a single conversation. And that's why this subject matters deeply to me. So I've been sitting with this question for a long time. Years ago, I worked at Apple, and during a stretch when the company was proving something radical, that technology built the right way doesn't replace human brilliance, it unlocks it. I watched ordinary tools become extraordinary extensions of human creativity, and I never forgot that lesson. That lesson back in 1984 became the seed of the companies that I have today in Synergy AI. I didn't build a company to put my name on a wall. I built it to design systems around human values, systems that are built to keep working, keep serving, keep unlocking people's brilliance long after I've left the room. So if I've done my job right, the work outlives me. That's the kind of unforgettable I'm chasing. Not fame, not function, not a spotlight, a legacy that keeps doing good without me standing in the middle of it. Now today, 4 guests are going to walk us through 4 layers of the same idea. We'll talk about what it takes to unlearn the patterns quietly limiting us. We'll talk about how the way we live day by day becomes the legacy we leave, whether we plan it or not. We'll talk about lifting others so high our fingerprints show up in rooms we'll never enter. And we'll talk about the belief that has to hold it all together when things get hard, and they get hard. So let's start at the beginning, because before you can become unforgettable, you have to unlearn what's making you forgettable in the first place. And my first guest has spent his career helping people recognize the generational patterns running quietly in the background of their lives, patterns inherited, not chosen, and disrupt them on purpose. He's a #1 best-selling author, a certified life coach, a master consulting hypnotist, and the founder of the Generational Freedom Foundation. Please welcome Michael Vukelic. Michael, welcome to Global Speakers Talk.
JB, thank you so much. I appreciate that amazing introduction. And I love your perspective. It is so true, absolutely true, that when we really embody who we truly are, we become so empowered. And my work is all about breaking those old generational cycles to become remembered, beyond conditioning, beyond what we've been taught to think of ourselves. It's so powerful. So today, I'm going to speak about what it takes to become the amazing person within you that has been covered by a lot of conditioning. Uncover the real you and be the person that gets remembered. Your car came with a 300-page manual. You've never read it. not once. Your phone came with a manual too, still shrink wrapped somewhere in the box. We were constantly using complicated machinery without instructions. And you showed up on this planet, the single most complicated, sophisticated piece of machinery that ever existed. And not only did you not read your user manual, somebody else wrote it for you. Your parents wrote a few chapters. Your culture added some more. Your religion has contributed. School added rules. Society kept quietly editing your whole life without ever asking your permission. And here's the part I want you to sit with. Most of the people writing your manual were not ever trying to hurt you. They were handing you the exact same manual they were handed. Your father's script came from his father. Your mother's fear was written for her decades before you showed up. By the time you were old enough to read your own instructions, the old playbook was already running the show, silently deciding what's safe, what's possible, what you deserve, and what you have to do to be loved and accepted. And you never once questioned whether it was true. Why would you? So you grew up. You became capable, accomplished, successful by every outward measure. And still somewhere underneath that success, there's an invisible ceiling, a version of yourself you can sense just out of reach that you never have quite become. You call that ceiling reality. You call that ceiling just who I am. You call it a fact. Well, that ceiling isn't a fact. It's an instruction. And instructions can always be rewritten. This work has transformed struggling leaders in family-owned business into big decision makers who now influence city policy. It's created leaders who, after 15 years of searching for answers, found healing from persistent emotions and cycles. And now they hold a position of power for one of the nation's best companies. They make real money. They built portfolios. They found real love. Prior to this work, the same patterns kept showing up they couldn't explain. Conflict they didn't ask for, in different rooms with different people. The same scene on a loop. After 20 years of study, mindset, neuroplasticity, hypnotherapy, ancient wisdom, the science of consciousness, what I found is the knowledge I now build everything on. Your limitations are not facts. They are old, outdated instructions. Let me share with you here what it looks like when you're living from old instructions and you're not even aware of it. It doesn't look like failure. That's the trap. It usually looks like success. You've got the title, the paycheck, the house, the car, whatever that official scoreboard is for you. By every outward measure anyone in your life could point to, you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And still, something keeps showing up that you can't fully explain. The same argument with a different person, a different decade, somehow landing in the same place. The same wall you hit right before things get good, right before the promotion, the relationship, the breakthrough. Something quietly pulls you back every single time. Like there's a rope tied around your waist that gets tight when you're just about to actually get somewhere. Most people believe the problem is external. The boss, the market, the industry, a particular person. But if the exact pattern keeps finding you in different rooms with different people, wearing different outfits, that's not bad luck. That's the old manual running in the background. Most people will spend their entire lives fixing an external symptom, while that internal manual keeps quietly rewriting those results. A new job, the same pattern shows up 18 months later. A new relationship, the same challenge shows up, wearing a different person's face. None of this means there's something wrong with you. It means you're patterned. Something was written into you by significant people following their old, outdated instructions. You're allowed to open that manual, cross things out, and rewrite something true instead. So how do we rewrite it? Well, it's not about telling yourself to think positive. A lot of what personal growth is, or what passes for personal growth today, is just shouting louder at the same old instructions, hoping they'll finally listen. As many clients can tell you, they don't. It takes a deeper process. You can't think your way out of a pattern that was never installed by thinking. Most of what's running your life wasn't reasoned into you, it was absorbed. Building a personal identity formed by what you heard, what you've seen, what you felt in the moments of your life. Repeated in 1,000 small events until it stopped feeling like a belief and started feeling like a fact about who you are. So the work has to go where the manual actually lives, not just in your thoughts, but in your mind's deeper patterns, in your body's emotional response, and in your connection to something more whole, more powerful than either one. Built for speed and depth is the Generational Freedom Protocol. 3 pillars, the quickest, fastest, most effective way to the root of a challenge, a pain, an emotion, a deep transformation. Starting with mind science, this is where the instructions live. Not vague feelings about childhood, specific, identifiable patterns about safety, worth, and what you're allowed to have. What you perceive shapes your experience. We address what your mind has already quietly decided is true. We find the instructions themselves because a pattern you can see is a pattern you can interrupt. Number 2, emotional regulation. Every emotional reaction you have creates a real chemistry in your body, not a metaphor. Any emotion held long enough, repeated often enough, and your cells start reproducing primed to keep you feeling that way. We are emotions: love, joy, anger, resentment, fear. Some emotions can become disruptive and addictive. In this process, you discovered how to stop reacting from a conditioned past and start responding from right now. The most powerful pillar of the 3, changing perspectives and offering wisdom for a massive shift, is the divine intelligence pillar. Underneath every chapter, your family, your culture, your fear ever wrote into you, there's a part of you that was never conditioned at all. Whole, calm, naturally worthy, without needing to prove a thing to anyone. This part of you doesn't need to win an argument to feel safe, or a promotion to feel valuable. Most people have never consciously welcomed, met, or even felt this version of themselves, not because it isn't there, but because the old manual has been running so loudly for so long. Your original signal got drowned out. It speaks quietly, gracefully, powerfully. Call it source, call it God, call it universe, call it higher intelligence, or the deepest part of consciousness. Whatever language fits you, the result is identical. It's the real you. And when you allow your genuine connection, here's what happens. The mind quiets. Emotions regulate instead of hijacking the room. Communication is clear because you're not defending an old wound. You're speaking from the truth. Conflict loses its grip Trust increases in yourself and then mirrors in everyone around you. Teams stop competing and start collaborating. Leadership stabilizes. Work becomes meaningful again, not because the job changed, but because the person doing the work did. Your conditioned identity is the lens through which you experience your life. When you change the lens, the whole picture changes with it. Not someday, now. You've been on stage your entire life, and most of us never chose our script. Somebody handed it to you before you could read. The quiet one, the reliable one, the one that doesn't take up too much space. You performed this role so long, you forgot it's just a role you were taught to play. You're allowed to read a new script, the one written in your own handwriting, by the part of you that existed before anyone else's fear shaped you. You're allowed to cross out the lines that were never true. And you are allowed right now to choose a different role for the rest of this life. You're not born broken, limited, or small. You were born whole, masterful, and worthy. Somewhere along the way, that original wholeness got buried underneath conditioning. Fear dressed up as wisdom. Control dressed up as love. But that original design has never left you. What would you change if you believed the ceiling you've been living under was never a fact? Just old instructions causing struggle, reaction, and limitation. You felt it in a split second, that familiar surge of irritation, frustration, or shutdown that hijacks you in the moments that matter most. You say things you regret and silently replay that scene all night long. Today, I'm offering a complimentary emotional trigger elimination session to the first 7 people who respond. This process will heal the source of mental dialogue that disrupts your success, hurts the people you love, and it's beginning to affect your health. In less than 1 hour, you're going to have a structured 30-day blueprint to be free of a predominant trigger. Normally $3.99. Today, it's my gift to the first 7 of you. First come, first served. Direct message me and comment blueprint for a complimentary session. And let's break those patterns before they cost you anything else. Thank you.
Well, Michael, that was awesome. I want to thank you so much for that. I'm sitting here writing all these different nuggets of wisdom that you've shared with us today. One of the things that, and I'll just comment on this before we move on.
Sure.
We're the editor of the instructions, and it never dawned on me that was the case. And all of a sudden, it was like a Rubik's Cube that all of a sudden went into the right colors and everything. So thank you so much for being here today and offering your wisdom. Really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here. And my intention today is that this makes an impact on the people who need it most. JB, thank you so much. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what a great place to start. Because, freedom from the past is a massive step to being that unforgettable whole human being that you are. Now, the real question after that is, what do you do with that freedom once you have it? So my next guest has spent her career answering that question through something deceptively simple. How you live every single day is already writing the story people will tell about you. She's a wellness guide, author, and the founder of the Alaka'i Associates, a name that fittingly means guide in Hawaiian. Please welcome Lani Almanza. Lani, welcome to Global Speakers Talk.
Well, Aloha, and thank you so much for sharing this space with me. I must admit that when I first saw the theme Beyond Expertise and the questions that were asked, I had two reactions. The first was, how in the world did I end up with all the experts in this summit? And my second reaction was a bit of a chuckle to myself, in that I have come to learn that my expertise does not come from degrees or titles, all of which I have, but from experience. It's the degree letters that I call BTDT, been there, done that. So my work is rooted in a simple belief that transformation does not always begin with a massive change. Sometimes it begins with a pause, one intentional moment when we stop, breathe, and reconnect with ourselves. So today I want to share with you what I call the sacred pause, the role that self-care and compassionate presence can play when life asks more of us than we think we have to give. This is not simply something I teach. It grew out of my own life and my experience caring for someone I love. My focus on wellness and self-care grew from my personal experience with my son's cancer journey and passing 20 years ago. Like many caregivers, I learned how quickly your attention can become centered on appointments, needs, decisions, uncertainty, and simply getting through the day. We often think that strength means continuing to give no matter what. We tell ourselves, I can handle this, I just need to keep going. And because someone we love needs us, we just keep going. We just keep doing. But I began to understand that there's a cost when we care for everyone except ourselves. It is possible to become completely devoted to someone else while slowly disappearing from our own life. I also came to understand that self-care is not stepping away from the people we love. It is one of the ways we remain able to show up for them with compassion, clarity, and presence. So caregiving can take many forms. It can mean caring for a child, a parent, a spouse, a client, a patient, a community, or even a team. And I have been a caregiver for all of those. The circumstances might be different, but the quiet question is often the same. Who is caring for the person who is caring for everyone else? Sustainable care requires attention to more than one part of ourselves. Our bodies need rest and nourishment. Emotionally, we need permission to have needs, boundaries, and support. And internally, we need meaning, connection, and moments of stillness. When those areas are neglected long enough, compassion fatigue can begin to replace compassionate presence. Compassion fatigue doesn't always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes we are still doing everything we're supposed to do. We're productive, we're responsible, we're dependable, and we're exhausted. We may become less patient with ourselves and with others. Rest can begin to feel like something we have to earn instead of something we simply need. We can also lose touch with the things that once brought us joy, peace, and energy. We may be physically present while no longer feeling fully present within ourselves. One of the most important things that I have learned is that awareness is not a reason to judge ourselves. It is an invitation to reconnect. The first most important lesson of self-care I learned and now share is remember to breathe. Our breath is our life force. We come into the world with a big inhale and we leave it with a big exhale. But in between, we spend most of our life holding our breath. It's a normal physical reaction to stress, but it can easily become so habitual that we hardly even notice it. And that affects every other aspect of our lives, physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually. The aha moment for me in this lesson was when at 5 years old, my youngest son was hit by a car in front of our house, And as I ran out to the street, my neighbor stepped in front of me, held my shoulders, and said, breathe. And it didn't even register until 24 hours later, when he was out of intensive care, that I felt the big exhale and cried. That lesson has become the cornerstone of every other lesson of self-care and my wellness work. So here's your first lesson. 3 deep breaths. Inhale and exhale to ground you to the present moment. Inhale and exhale to see new possibilities and choices. And inhale and exhale to take the next sacred step in your journey. And I would encourage you to add a reminder on your phone or put up a Post-it somewhere to take these 3 breaths at least once a day. As you create this habit, it becomes a routine, and then that routine can become a ritual, the sacred step that will sustain you on your life's journey ahead. And here's your next sacred step. You do not need a special room, perfect circumstances, or 20 minutes of uninterrupted time. One intentional breath can interrupt the rush and create a moment of space. So stop and observe. Notice what is around you. Notice your senses. What do you hear? What do you see? What does your body feel like right now? Then notice what is happening within you without immediately trying to change or fix it. And then ask, what do I need right now? What would support me in this moment? Not next week, not after everything is finished, but right now. If it feels uncomfortable, I invite you to take one slow breath with me. Notice where your body is supported. Notice one sound around you. And quietly ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? Sometimes the answer is rest. Sometimes it is help. Sometimes it is movement or silence, a boundary, a conversation, or simply permission to be human. Self-care is often treated as an extra, something we do after the important work is finished. But for caregivers, leaders, helpers, and people who carry a great deal for others, self-care is part of the important work. It does not have to be elaborate. It can be one breath, one boundary, one request for help, one choice to include yourself in the circle of people you care for. Those small choices are not insignificant. Repeated over time, they can change the way we move through our lives. Finding your way back to yourself can begin with simple, sacred steps. There are several questions I return to in my own work and in the spaces I create for others. Where do I find joy? What brings me peace? Where do I feel safe enough to exhale? What energizes me? And what am I grateful for today? We do not need to answer all of them at once. I invite you to choose one question and sit with it. Listen to the answer without judging it. Let your answer guide your one small sacred step. Self-care becomes real when reflection turns into a choice. And I want to leave you with this reminder. You deserve a place in your own self-care, in your own care. The people we love do not need us to disappear in order to prove that we care. Our families, our work, and our communities are strengthened when we learn to show up with compassionate presence, including towards ourselves. Transformation does not always require us to change everything. Sometimes it begins with one breath, one moment of awareness, and one choice to come home to ourselves. May you give yourself permission to pause, reconnect, and take the next sacred step. And I'd like to offer the first 4 people to contact me from this wonderful summit a copy of my latest book, Beyond the Horizon, A Guide to Life's Journey, which will help you see your next sacred step. Thank you for sharing these few minutes with me.
Well, Lani, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you could, in our chat, put your link there, and I'll make sure that we publish it in the chat for this event.
Thank you. I will.
No, thank you. And before you do that, though, I would like to go back to one thing that you said. You said 3 breaths. Mm-hmm. Can you just real quickly go through what were those 3 breaths again?
Absolutely. And I want to make sure I repeat them as I gave them to you.
Sure.
Oh boy.
Of course.
Hang on.
I asked the wrong question, right?
Oh, right here. Inhale and exhale to ground you to the present moment.
Okay.
Inhale and exhale to see new possibilities and choices.
Okay.
And inhale and exhale to take the next sacred step in your journey.
Awesome.
And I do want to give credit where credit's due, that I learned that process from the book 3 Deep Breaths by Thomas Crum. I highly recommend it. It's a great read, an easy read, and really reflection on how important and how impactful 3 deep breaths can be.
Absolutely. As you were going through it in your presentation today, I found myself slowing my heart rate, getting more centered, just as you were describing those 3 breaths. That's why I asked you to repeat them, because it's so important, self-care. You know, you reminded us that it's critical for us to show up with compassionate presence. And the only way to do that is to ensure that you're taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And that begins with one breath.
Yes.
So thank you, Lani. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Well, my next guest has built her career doing exactly that. Excuse me. Turning her own hardest chapters into a platform for lifting others. She's a multiple award-winning international keynote speaker, a leadership development trainer, and founder of Lead with Difference Global. Her work advancing women and underrepresented voices has been featured by the BBC, TEDx, and BBC Radio 5 Live. Please welcome Jasmine Mbai. Jasmine, welcome to Global Speakers Talk. Oh, you're on mute.
Right, let's try that again, shall we? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. And every one of you here. I'm in, oh dear, the not so sunny UK. I hope you can hear me. And I'm really glad to be here today. What a wonderful space that is being created. And yeah, just wanted to take a moment to share my thoughts on what makes you remembered, recommended, and chosen. And I want to share a little bit about my journey, a bit about my story, and really kind of follow on from the golden thread that is emanating here today, which is I think it's you. I think it's you that makes you remembered when you are authentically yourself. It is memorable to the right people. And I think that's something that's so, so important. And it takes us to do the work on us so that we can recognize and accept that we will not be remembered necessarily by everyone. We're not going to be recommended by everyone, and we're not going to be chosen by everyone. And that is okay. But when you're authentically you, you will connect with, you will be remembered by, and recommended and chosen by those that rightly connect with you. When I was thinking of this summit today, the wonderful person that came to mind was Maya Angelou, and that very famous quote that she said, "People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." That's what people will remember, how you made them feel. And the greatest impact I believe that we can have just comes from being who we are, who we truly are. And I don't say that as someone who has walked through life always feeling empowered to just truly be myself, because my journey started with that mindset and that belief that I had to be strong, because my childhood taught me to survive in dysfunction, to survive in abuse. And I really loved what Michael was talking about there when he was sharing about the patterns that are handed to us in childhood. These are often the patterns that we just keep playing out in our adult life. And I'll be very honest with you, I am still on that journey of learning about me, why I am the way I am, why I do the things I do, and why I respond the way that I do. But what I am fully aware of and committed to is my journey of not just being a victim of abuse, not surviving even of abuse, but overcoming it. And it's that commitment to overcoming, that daily commitment, means that I've learned to give myself the grace that I need so that I can learn and I can grow and I continue to become. And I think that journey of becoming is a very compelling one. When we make that commitment to become, to peel back those layers and become who it was that I believe the way I can best way I can express it is that God created us to be. We make that commitment to become that person. I think that is what makes us remembered. That is what makes us recommended and chosen when we're doing the work. Because we all have our own journeys, we all have our own story. But in that commitment, as I phrased it, to overcoming, and for you, it might be something different, but learning and admitting, you know what, there's something more that I can do. There's something more that I can learn. There's that I can grow. That growth mindset, that goes a long way, because it means along with what I naturally have in my disposition, my abilities, my gifts, my talents, my skills, I'm willing to learn and grow and add to that, honing those skills further, those abilities even greater, and then recognizing where I have those deficits and thinking about how I can just make them better so they don't hold me back. That goes a long way. And so for me, life began with a lot of challenges. It began with me learning to survive in dysfunction, as I mentioned. And in my learning, what I've come to understand of complex trauma is that it requires the assassination of yourself to survive in complex trauma, because that's all you're trying to do. You're trying to survive. You have to assassinate yourself. You need to become what it is that you need to become to survive. And that's why that being authentically yourself really resonates with me, because that's so easy for some and it's so hard for many of us, even without the complex trauma that I may have encountered. Just life, societal pressures, these can all make us feel like we need to be something that we are not authentically. And so our willingness to just look within, to take that time, and I loved what Lani said, which is just to pause, to reflect, and just think about, who am I? And why am I the way that I am? Now, I did a TEDx a few years back, and it was as I was on my journey. And one of the things that, I shared was when I was in a church service, when I really had some time to just think about, even with my issues. And that for me was a pivotal moment of just acknowledging the issues and the challenges that I had, not just the scars, the wounds that I was walking around with and that I was functioning with, and some of the overfunctioning that brought with it. And it was in my willingness to admit that I had these issues, because before I'd just been masking it so well for so long, nobody knew. But it was in my willingness to admit that I had these issues and to just peel a little bit of that mask that started my journey. And I began that journey of healing, but unfortunately there was so much that I didn't know. I didn't understand about the patterns that Michael shared about. I didn't get the therapy because, as I shared with you, I had learned to survive in dysfunction. So I didn't fall apart. I seemed okay. So I never quite qualified to get therapy. And I just looked all right, and people assumed, therefore, that I was. And it took me to just want to know, to understand. It took my questioning mind to think why. I need to understand why I respond like this, why I feel like this, that I began to explore more and more and more. But even in those explorations, I had massive blind spots. And that would mean that my lack of understanding around these patterns meant I would pick a partner. That would just mean that I was repeating much of those childhood cycles. And it meant that, unfortunately, although in a different form, the abuse cycle continued. And I got to the point where I didn't want to wear the mask anymore. I think where life really had hit a rock bottom. And I realized I couldn't mask it anymore. Furthermore, I didn't want to wear the mask anymore. And so that was the beginning of me really embracing all of me. And I tried in business up until this point and never quite succeeded. And I came to realize the reason I couldn't quite succeed was because my lack of authenticity, my inauthenticness, meant that people couldn't really connect with me. People don't connect to what's fake. They connect to what's real. And even on a very unconscious human level, we don't know it, but we don't feel that kind of pull from someone that's just performative and fake. Most of us unconsciously won't. And so when I decided it was I'm going to take the mask off and I'm going to show these scars that I have, and you know what, some of the wounds. And unfortunately, my relationship meant that where there had been healing, these had begun to reopen. People began to connect with me, and I began to experience small measure, but some measures of success where I could never find it before. But it's because I was being real, beginning to be real. It's because I was beginning to be who I really was. And as I began to evaluate my journey, as I continued on this path of wanting to know and wanting to grow, I came up with a methodology. And it's what we now use in my business, Lead with Difference Global. And it's called the Lead Beyond Pathway. I'm going to take you through the 3 steps, because it's just 3 steps of it. And I want you to think about where you are and what might help you get to the next level, because I think that we're all leaders in our own right. And we look at leadership, not just being a leader, because often the use of that word leader, we think of people that are leading companies, they're leading organizations, the one that's at the top. But leadership looks at the capacity that each of us has to lead and how we exercise that ability in our sphere of influence. And so let's talk about leadership, and then we can look at leaders. And so the Lead Beyond Pathway is all about that. And the 3 steps were extracted from my life experience and the lives of those that I looked at and had worked with. And these steps are that we, in order to be the effective leaders, the empowered leaders that we can be, in order for you to be truly remembered, recommended, and chosen, I think you need to follow these 3 steps, which is to firstly, to recover. That's a lot of what Michael was talking about. We need to recover from what we've been through. And that is whether it's the big T stuff that I'm talking about, complex trauma, or the little T stuff. There was some research done in the last few years, and they said that they found that the little T trauma has as much of an effect on more sensitive people as the big T trauma stuff. So if you're a more sensitive individual, you may be there sitting there thinking, I've not really been through anything, but what you don't realize is when you had to change schools and leave behind friends and family that you love because you were moving to somewhere else, that may have been highly traumatizing for you and may have impacted you quite severely. Whether it's because there's been no major trauma, but we just got some messaging in childhood, which is that we are only as valuable as the service that we provide to others, and that value doesn't reside within us. A lot of I primarily speak to a lot of women and a lot of ethnically diverse individuals. A lot of these individuals, I'm hearing messages where they feel that they need to be perfect. They need to earn love and they need to prove value, but not from a place of, I'm going to just show you it, like I've got the receipts. No, like I need to convince you, because they're actually trying to convince themselves as well. And so these individuals have somewhere along the line adopted this kind of mindset. And so we need to recover what was lost, and maybe not lost because actually it may never have been planted in us, but recover from that lost sense of God gave it. We were born whole, we were born perfect, but the way that we may have been nurtured may have unfortunately taught us some unhelpful ways. And so now we need to unlearn so that we can relearn. And that's what I mean by the recover. This is where we want to reclaim our energy and our clarity. We want to reclaim who we really are, because in doing so, that's when we're now able to develop our leadership capability so that we can connect with people more authentically and we can become more memorable. And so in this, we're overcoming obstacles such as maybe lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem. It could be, abuse. It could be just that we haven't been taught to value ourselves. So it's the burnout. We're trying to overcome some obstacles so that we can lead more effectively. And then the next step, the second step of this 3-part methodology, is to reconnect. So I need to recover, and that can be a bit like what Lani talked about, that pause. For me, that recovery happened in adulthood when life fell apart and I went into a refuge with my daughter. I had time to pause. I wasn't working. I've always worked in life, but I wasn't working, and I didn't have anything to do but just to focus on me and my daughter. So reconnecting is now where we start to reconnect with ourselves. We're thinking about, I'm recognizing what I've been through, and I'm seeing the things I may have minimized, particularly if you're like me, you've learned to minimize what you've been through. And I'm seeing that actually these things are quite significant. They've impacted me greatly. So now let me reconnect with who I am. Now I recognize myself, really. I'm not telling myself who I need to be, like me. I need to be strong. I need to be, no. Just who am I? Reconnect with me. And then I can start to reconnect with others in a more authentic manner, like I did, which is to say, no, I haven't got it all figured out. I'm figuring it out right now. And this is what I'm learning. And I want to share with you what I'm learning. I want to share with you how I'm growing. That authentic connection, that is so powerful. And then this is where our leadership now starts to really come into its own phase, because we're leading with empathy, we're leading with purpose. It's hard to give what you don't have. But when I've got empathy for myself and I've reconnected with me, I can have empathy with you, and I can connect authentically with you because I've created the space for that. And so this is where, we're rediscovering purpose, we're rediscovering passion, we're rediscovering what it is that we're really about, how to communicate more effectively and develop our authentic leadership presence. And then the third and the final phase is to rise. And so this is where we now begin to elevate not only ourselves, but we begin to elevate others. And so this is where you now amplify your impact and your influence. And you bring others along with you. And then people are going to definitely remember you because you come authentically, you come sharing your unique story in your unique way. You will then be more recommended, and I believe you will be chosen. So if you want to connect with me, I'm going to leave a link in the chat. I'm offering a opportunity to take a quiz to find out how empowered you are to show up authentically, and to book a complimentary one-to-one session with me, an hour-long session where we can unpack your results. So please take full advantage, and I hope to connect with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. So Jasmine, let me ask one question if I could.
Sure.
So you had 3 points. Point two was reconnect with yourself.
Yes.
And point 3 was rise.
Yes.
What was point 1?
Recover.
Recover,
reconnect, and rise.
Perfect. So I'm writing all these notes down, and as I'm doing that, I'm going, great thoughts. What was the one word? So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, you've shown us kind of what becoming unforgettable isn't only about what you carry, it's about how you can be authentically yourself. And when you are, that enables us to really elevate others and and ourselves at the same time.
That's correct. I agree with that. Thank you. I'm glad you got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, JB.
Well, none of this, the unlearning, the living, the lifting, survives real pressure unless something underneath it is strong enough to hold. And our final guest today knows that better than most. Over 4 decades across business, education, and industries most of us never touch, he's studied what happens to belief when everything falls apart and what it takes to rebuild it into something unshakable. He's a keynote speaker, author, and a passionate advocate for men's mental wellness. Please welcome Peter Chatteris. Peter, welcome to Global Speakers Talk. You're on mute. No?
Oh, that better.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. I have to turn my speaker off. So, yes, it's at 3 a.m. in the morning here, but I love the energy when you come on to things like that. My name is Peter Chatteris, and as has been said, I'm a speaker, author, and coach. I just finished my 9th book 2 days ago, and I'm also a software developer for the professional speaking industry. But 3 years ago, I was homeless. I didn't have a home. And I ended up living in an old caravan. In the caravan, it had leaks. It had flies in the summer and so freezing outside in the winter. And what I didn't know also was it had asbestos in the ceiling, and that was dropping down on me. It had rats going through it. So how did I get out of that to be on the international stage? Because no matter what you're going through, there's one little thing that will help. I'm going to try and present something here that will let you see what my little secret was. Now, my little secret is free. Everybody's offering free things. My one's free. In fact, it's so free that everybody in the world can have it, but they just need it. Ooh, shall I tell you? Oh, yeah, okay. What's that? See it? Look, it says dreams. Dreams are the cheapest commodity that we've got, but dreams are the most valuable thing that we've got. I'll tell you why. Because if it was a dream for mankind to fly through the air for the Wright brothers, they started to believe in those dreams. They started to believe that they could do it. Today we travel in aircraft. Thomas Edison's another one. He dreamed of inventing a light bulb. He failed over 1,000 times, but he had faith and he had belief. That's what we have to do with our dreams. Now, how did I do it? How did 3 years ago, homeless, not earn anything? Today I'm a keynote speaker. Well, I had my first paid gig 8 months after I was homeless because I had a dream to do it. So no matter what we do and what we're facing, dreams. So what does dreams stand for? Because it's all very cryptic here. Dreams stand for design. So D-R-E-A-M is D for design. What I mean by that is do not be afraid to think about what your dreams are. One of the things that I find when I'm working with business is you ask an employee, hey, why are you at work? And just answer that yourself. If you've got a pen and paper, just write down what it is. You know, why do you go to work? Why do you spend 8 hours, 10 hours, or whatever you spend at work? And I guarantee most of you would have written to get money. Or you might have said, oh, to feed my family. Some of you might say, just to pay the bills, because I've heard that so often. If you lack dreams and you are only going to work to fulfill the obligation, then I can't see that you're living a life of absolute utmost pleasure. So we need to design our dreams. One good way of doing that, let's say I had $1 million, just got to put in my bank account, what would you do? Think about it. So once I did that, I imagined, I placed my dreams. And I recorded my dreams. So how I recorded it was I wrote things down. I had a little diary with me all the time. I write things down in it. I also recorded them on my phone. So I listened to them almost 24 hours a day in this old caravan. I wasn't earning anything. And eventually, I started to believe that my dreams could come true. And then we've got the engage. Now, I got engaged last year as well, but you can all thank me later for that. Engaging with emotion. We have to, when we think about our dreams, we have to engage with emotion. Become emotional about it. If your dream is to go on a cruise, get posters of it, look at it, get excited about it. I get excited about going on stage in front of 300 people. That was a dream I had. And that dream excited me. There's some things in your life that you could be excited with as well. What about grabbing a Ferrari? How's that Ferrari? You're going to drive around a Ferrari. If you want one, what is stopping you from getting one? Because if you dream, you start to believe. This one's very important. It's articulate. You see, articulate. Look, I'm wearing the same shirt. Don't think a handsome guy, isn't he? Proper life. I articulate my dreams. What that means is to share your dreams. Share it with your loved ones, with your family, with your colleagues, with your workmates. But don't be afraid to tell people what your dreams are. And also tell yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm going to have to drive a Ferrari. I'm going to drive a Lamborghini. I'm going to go on that overseas holiday. I'm going to go on that cruise, whatever your dream is. Look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself. I also put dreams up on my walls in the cabin. They're crazy dreams. I didn't even believe it first. But here's the little thing. You don't have to believe in your dreams. But the more you engage with your dreams, you write your dreams, you manifest your dreams, the more you'll start to believe in them. That's why I have a little thing, belief. Believe in belief. It will happen. And then I manifested my dreams. So I think everybody's probably seen The Secret and read Napoleon's really great book, Think and Grow Rich. And it talks about manifest. It talks about you're so strong in your mind that whatever you think will come true. And that's really important. It's got to happen inside your mind before it can come reality. So think about it. People of this world who have achieved so-called greatness manifested their dreams. And the last one is sustain. I was talking to a guy just recently, one of my audiences, and he said, I don't need anything more. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, he was in the agriculture industry. He said, I've got everything I need. So what are you dreaming about? No, I don't dream about anything. And then he said, well, I saw some dolphins the other day, and I loved it. Every time I wake up in the morning, I think about those dolphins being free. I went, oh. So maybe you'd like to go dolphin rich. Maybe you'd like to start a business with dolphins as part of the agriculture business. And you know what he said? He said, that's impossible. I said, okay, dream it. Well, I rang this guy up about a week ago, and he's bought another boat, a leisure boat, that can take passengers. And all of a sudden he's got this dream of watching dolphins or whale watching. He didn't believe it, but he went through this process and he did believe it. I've got a firm belief. What's not going to change? Look at that. Self-belief is the empowerment that makes your dreams come true. I'll say it again. Self-belief is the catalyst or the empowerment of belief. Belief is the empowerment of attaining things. If I can come from homelessness to speaking on world stages, becoming the New Zealand national champion of impromptu speaking, speak to you all, then I guarantee that if you follow the dreams framework, you will. So let's have a look again. Self-belief fuels the flame of success. See? I think you all say it with me. Self-belief fuels the flame of success. Say it one more time. Self-belief fuels the flame of success. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to start writing some of your dreams. Right now. You took them on your computer or write them out longhand. And I want you to stick them in front of your bathroom window, in your car, and have a copy of it at least in your pocket. The more you read about it, the more you do that, the greater the likelihood of your dreams coming true. So let's have a look at this again. Dreams. I'll get out of the way. Design, record, engage, articulate, manifest, and sustain. Imagine if we could go out into the world and make them believe in dreams. Imagine if we could go out in the world and people who are down and out, we offer them their dreams. Imagine if we were out in the world and we could make people believe in themselves. Would there be no wars? I don't know. But I see it for people that are down and out. I've travelled with World Vision to Cambodia. I've travelled up in northern Thailand. The funny thing is that most people in poor countries have dreams. But people in our so-called wealthy society, they don't. So just take time. Take time to dream. Because if you get dreams, you will believe. Believe in belief. There's a chap across the road. I'm actually not home at the moment. And where I'm staying, there's a chap across the road who's homeless. And I was talking to him today, actually, or yesterday, sorry, about the Dreams framework and how he could help himself. One example I gave was when I was homeless, I was quite near the airport, so I would get flight radar 24, which is still active yet, and I would follow a plane that would be taking off, and they'd be taking off, going somewhere, and I followed that flight radar 24. And when it got to its destination, I would do Google Street View to follow it through the streets to a hotel that I pre-selected. I was living the moment. We have to change people's mindset from failure to self-belief. So here's a challenge for you. I'll give you a copy of my book, Unleash the Power. It's a challenge. 3 times a day, I want you to look in the mirror. I want you to say 4 words. I believe in you. 4 words. I believe in you. 3 times a day, and each time you say it 3 times. I believe in you. During the week, here's another challenge. I want you to tell at least 2 people that you believe in them. Imagine if the world started believing in themselves. People in the world started believing in themselves. We could achieve so much as a community. I believe in you. And you're okay. You're an individual, 1 of 8.5 billion people in this world. Nobody has ever had your personality, your skill set, your creative ability. Nobody ever will have yours. Just think about that. I believe in you. I'll put this slide up here and move away out here. So if you want to just take a photo of that, it will take you through to my website and get a free copy of Unleash the Power. So I'll just leave that up for a little while. Most of you hopefully now have taken a picture of that. We're quite modern here in New Zealand, we even have 2 cars. We haven't even had 2 of these actually. And no, we don't have a bridge across to Australia with the military. Anyway, hopefully you've got all that. If you haven't, well, you can just contact me through the normal channels. My name is on Facebook. peterjarvis.com is my website. Take care, everybody.
Well, Peter, thank you so much. Appreciate, what you were talking about, how you presented it. Belief isn't about decoration. It's about the dreams that you currently have. And I really appreciate Peter's presentation and the information that he was talking about. So now what I'd like to do is bring all four of you back to the table, because there's one part of this story that none of you can tell alone. And here's the truth. Yeah, nobody in this room is going to be remembered for their job title or their inbox or their calendar, or how many things they got done on a Tuesday, right? People don't remember what you did nearly as well as they remember how you made them feel. And I know that Jasmine actually quoted that today from Maya Angelou. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how a room remembers how you made them feel. Now, from your own perspectives, I'd like to identify, or, a thought experiment here. You're presenting, or you're going to present, and from your own individual experiences, how would you advise somebody who's going to come in and into that environment, and how that person can make this group of people feel about them? What advice would you give them specifically? Does that make sense? So, think of the last person who left a lasting impression on you, not because of how being around them felt, right? What did they do differently? How would you advise that person to be differently? So why don't we start with? Let's start with Jasmine.
Okay, so when you first asked the question, I had a thought, but then the last bit that you said kind of changed that. Because what I was thinking about initially, when you want to think about, creating an impact, a positive impact on others, is one, who are they? Yeah, I think curiosity, it's been my word of the year for the last few years, curiosity. If I'm going to be speaking to someone or people, I want to know who they are, and as much about them as I can, because I want to connect. And I think that just in and of itself is a starting point when you're going to speak with anybody, anywhere, just some genuine curiosity about the person or the people that you're speaking to. It creates that connection in most respects, because curiosity isn't judgmental. Curiosity is just, I'd like to know, I'm wondering, I might have a blank page and I want you to fill it in, or I've got some thoughts and I'm wondering if they're correct. That's what curiosity allows us to do. And then as I'm now finding out about that person, or if I've got information ahead of time, I then think about being authentic, but being relevant at the same time. Because being authentic, I don't believe there's such a thing as being too authentic, but I do think your authenticity can be irrelevant if you haven't considered whom it is that you are speaking with. So, if I'm going to speak to young people, little kids, I'm going to think about what words I'm going to use. Now, I still share that I've had challenges. I went to my daughter's school recently, and I said about a dark time in history. And one of her school friends, he's from mixed heritage, and he was like, "Oh, do you mean about the slavery?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And I was just like, because his dad is mixed as well. So I was like, "Okay, yeah." He addressed it, but because of the age, my daughter's only 8, I didn't want to mention that specifically because they may not know. They're quite young. They don't necessarily need to know about that too much. So I think it's about that. I want to be authentic, but I also need to think about who I'm talking to and being relevant to them.
Love
and
that.
It's about adapting. Thank you.
No, that's great, Jasmine. I love that. Michael, how about you? How would you approach that?
Well, I absolutely agree with what Jasmine said. And it is about really knowing your audience, knowing who you're speaking to, okay, understanding them, and having them feel something, right? So it's telling a story that's relatable to their life. So knowing your audience, telling a relatable story that really draws them in and having them feel that story themselves, okay? So I believe that makes communication powerful. All right. And, there's so many stories that I could tell about my life, and I relate to all of you in so many different ways. I mean, I grew up in a very traumatic environment, and to overcome that, there's many stories of my life that I can relate to different people and their pain and overcoming that pain. Because here, what I've really learned is to connect also is to really have them understand how amazing they are, how powerful they are by just being themselves and moving away from what they've been conditioned to believe. So there's emotion involved, there's beautiful stories involved. This is what changes people's lives. That's really where I try to come from. Okay.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Lani, how about you?
Well, yeah, Michael and Jasmine have said some really powerful words that just resonated with me as well. Curious is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
To be curious about who you're connecting with, but also to be a good listener. So for me, it's to be a curious listener. Um, and I recently shared with somebody the acronym of WAIT, WAIT. So ask yourself, why am I talking? If if you're talking too much, you're not listening and connecting. The other thing was authenticity. For me, that also is being vulnerable. That, like Michael said, if you can't relate to your story to someone else's story, there's not going to be a connection. You're not going to engage with them, and unless you can make that connection, um, they probably aren't going to have a feeling that makes them remember you. I also think relevancy, to understand the audience that you're talking to, or the group, or just the individual, a little bit about their background, so that your conversation, even if you have a topic that might be applicable to everyone, that you're using a language that connects with them and their story. So it really is, for me, about trying to hear what their story is, so that I know the right words or the right message that will connect with them, but also being my authentic and vulnerable self.
That's great. I love it. Thank you, Lani. Okay, Peter, how about you? How would you handle that?
How would I? Oops, I'm getting an echo. Give me the question again. It's 2 a.m. in the morning here.
Oh, sure. First of all, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you staying for our little
Sorry,
roundtable.
you're on mute then. What was the
Uh,
question, please?
Okay, so think of the last person who left a lasting impression on you, not because of what they accomplished, but because of how being around them felt. What did they do differently? How would you advise them if they were going to speak to a group of people to have impact?
Well, the last person that held that lasting impression on me, I did like the breathing exercises, by the way. You got to keep breathing. But the last person who left an impression was actually a guy. Oh, look, I'm going to disclose something here, right?
Mhm.
If I take my back screen off, you would find that I'm in hospital. I've been 6 weeks in a hospital now for depression. And I found out a week ago I had cancer. So I guess the last person to make an impression was the person who told me I have cancer. She did it so well, and I don't know what stage it is, but it could be that this time next year I won't be around. And yet she told me in the most beautiful way. And that made an impression on me. And then this week, a guy rang me up, and I'm known for my belief in men's mental health. And he was a guy on the edge of suicide. And I said, well, suicide is something that's going to cut off your family, your friends, all the people you've spoken to. everybody. I managed to talk them out of that. So I've had two people greatly influence my life. The girl who told me that I had cancer, she did it beautifully. And the guy who rang me asking for me help, for my help. So those are two people.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask this question. How, this is for everybody in the room too, is there a difference between being liked and being remembered? And what's the line between the two?
That's a good one, JB. Ooh, that's juicy. Ooh, liked and remembered. I think there is a difference. I think for the most part, if you are liked, you will be remembered. For the most part, like, oh, I really like that person. He was this, you'll tend to remember that person because, whatever it is that you liked about them, that there's a level of connection, I would say there. But I think it's also possible to be remembered without being necessarily like particularly. Someone might have a bit more of a neutral feeling towards you. I didn't particularly like them or not, but I still remember something poignant they said or they did that was very impressionable. So I think that's why when we are, speaking to people and we're being authentic, we don't need to focus on being liked so much because you could be remembered without it. And I just think, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I think that was one of the most liberating things for me. And I want to get that T-shirt that says, I can only please one person a day and today ain't your day. I just like the idea of
love that.
Just being upfront about, everyone's not going to like me, and I'm not going to like everyone, and that's okay. And I'm quite a likable person, I think. And I do like people more often than not. But I think it just strikes at the heart of the fact that we don't need to worry so much about people liking us. I think just be authentic, and those that connect with you and like you, great. Other people might just remember you because something point you said, but
Sure.
That's my thoughts on that.
I love it. Thank you, Jasmine. Michael, how about you?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is very relatable, JB, because sometimes when we talk about becoming responsible for our life, you're not really well liked. So the truth is sometimes hard to accept. So there are people who, might not like what you have to say, but they do remember you. They do remember what you said. Okay. So, being liked and remembered doesn't always go together. And for us as speakers, I believe it is stepping up, being authentic, sharing your message powerfully without an attachment to being liked or remembered. Just here it is. It's coming from my heart. This is what I believe will really impact your life. And whether they like it or not, I hope you remember it, right? So
I love that. That's great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Lani.
Yeah, I think in today's world of social media and how many likes you have, we have focused too much on being liked and not being remembered. That it's the quick like, the quick response, how much you get liked, and so for me, I'd rather be remembered. I think kind of like how Jasmine said, you can be in a room full of people and not everybody's going to like you. But to be remembered and have an impact. And I always return to one of my favorite quotes, which is, helping one person might not change the world, but it could change the world for that one person. And so if I can be remembered by that one person and impact their world, then my purpose here is fulfilled.
Love that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Lani. Peter.
Yes.
So tell us, what's the difference? The difference between liked and remembered. Where's the line?
Well, if you want a good example of that, think of Adolf Hitler. I mean, it's like Adolf Hitler. I hope you don't. But he certainly remembered. But then, of course, you've got great people like Martin Luther King, who is liked and remembered. For me, I guess I want to be liked, but I also want to be loved. And when I speak on a stage, authenticity is key. So I will be remembered, but I'll be remembered because they like me. Not because they dislike me, but because they like me. But again, there are some people that are totally memorable, but really?
You're right.
I mean, I don't know about your political situation over there, but I know here, there's some people that can be remembered for all the wrong things.
Isn't that the truth?
So I think they are separate things. They can go together.
I love that. And it's really interesting. I want to kind of go back if I could, because Peter, you're absolutely right. What Lani said and how she reacted, there's a difference between being liked and remembered. Because Lani actually did this. She made a gesture to her heart, right? Different than this, which is, oh, I'm making a point. I'm going to do this, blah, 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 right? And that's the world that we live in, unfortunately. The culture, global culture, right? Because this is literally a global event, right? From the UK down to New Zealand to Hawaii, in the mainland, we're all over the world here. And yet, we all have the same challenges. We all have this one fundamental thing, which is how in the world can we be authentic enough, loving ourselves enough, that we're able to bring that to other people so that we can be remembered. So,
can I just add something there? As you were talking, JB, it got me thinking
Sure.
a bit about what you said, Michael, which is I think the like needs to start with me liking myself. Because when I like me and coming on what you said, when I love me and I can embrace all of me, that's what enables me to stand, and share my message with authenticity and with love. People feel that. And then they may not always agree with it. And I was delivering a session not so long ago, and I had someone actually completely disagree with me and really withdraw in the session, and it's not something I'm used to. And you're just a bit like, my ego was a little bit like, oh my God, this is like, wow. But I was like, do you know what? I said it, and now I've got to live with it. Not everyone's going to like you. You're not going to please everyone when you deliver and when you share whatever. And it's not because I did anything incorrect, but for that individual, it just wasn't to her liking, and for her that meant she wanted to disengage and stuff. So we have to like ourselves enough so that we're not then cowtailing to be liked by others and diluting the truth that we have to bring and the light that we have to shine in this world. So I just want to add that.
Yeah, no, I love that, Jasmine. Now here's what's really interesting, and I'm going to see if this is of an experience that you have. I come from Silicon Valley and the technology universe, right? And in the past, and I'll tell you, I can talk about all kinds of stories about the first days at Apple, and then when I went back later, great stories. But what I've noticed today is that there's a promotion of antagonism that is being promoted for small companies, large companies, startups, and what have you, to be combative. That the more combative you are, the better it is, because you can polarize people and you'll get your tribe, right? So there's a difference, there's a continuum, if you will, based on what we're talking about. Yes, in fact, there will be people who don't like whatever your message is. But going out intentionally to create that antagonism is an outlier to what we're talking about. So I just wanted to pose this question to you. Is that something that you've experienced in your part of the world as you're speaking with people and having conversations with companies?
No. It's in New Zealand, it's probably a little bit different in that there's not a lot of antagonism. We have what's called tall poppy syndrome, where if you do make it, people try to pull you down, but it's not antagonistic. It's just that they're jealous of when you make it. I'm on the board of Professional Speakers Association of New Zealand, and we are all colleagues. We compete against each other for work, of course, but we'll support every single one of us. We call that in New Zealand whānau.
Then what we need to do is we need to export what you do. Peter, we need to export what you do. Because yeah, I mean, I see that. I actually have been to conferences where companies have been coached by venture capitalists and other people to do that, to do what I suggested. And so part of what we do at Global Speakers Talk is bridge that gap, right? Everybody has a voice. Everyone has a good story. But the reality ends up being, how can we take these stories and our unique points of view and get that message out so that we can raise the value of everybody around us? And I want to thank you all for being here today. This has been a wonderful experience. And let me, if I could, I'm going to close today. But when I opened, I talked about my time at Apple really briefly. And I said that I learned that technology, when we did it, built the right way, doesn't replace people. It amplifies them. And I've spent years since then trying to build companies and promote and foster that philosophy. And so even now in the world of AI, where we find ourselves sometimes not sure of, are we seeing somebody real or what is that stuff? It's building systems that are based on the human values. Those values are what make us authentic, make us likable, make us rememberable. But here's what today's conversation has taught me, and I suspect maybe a little bit for you too, that systems aren't the only things we're building to outlast you. Relationships are. Right? It's the feeling that people carry with them after they spent an hour, a meeting, or even a lifetime around you. And the Roundtable brought that all home. And here's the question that I want to leave everybody with. The same one we opened with today. Why should anyone remember you? Not because of what you built for yourself, but because of what you built and who you lifted that keeps going after you've left the room. So thank you again to our speakers. Thank you to Anshu and Global Speakers Talk. I'm JB Herrera. Thank you for spending this time with us at Global Speakers Talk Monthly Summit. And until next time, go be unforgettable on purpose with authenticity. Thanks very much.
Much love to all of you.
Aloha.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was lovely to meet all of you, and have a great rest.
Together we are Global Speakers Talk.